In a striking story, last week 18-year-old Tony Farmer should have been sifting through basketball scholarship offers and choosing which college to attend, but instead he stood before a judge convicted on charges of kidnapping and felonious assault. Upon hearing his sentence, 3 years in prison to be served concurrently, the 6'7" wingman collapsed and proceeded to sit on the floor in shock. A rather hard-hitting image considering how bright his future had looked. Farmer's fall is only one of the many insane responses to court sentencing that can be found online. Some are violent, some hilarious, others terrifying, and all of course are on YouTube. Hello everyone, and welcome to another video. Today, we'll be looking at the 5 reactions of Karens getting karma in court. Yeah, you heard it right. So, let's start our video. Number 5. Anthony Allen. It's difficult to flip people off in handcuffs, so Anthony Allen settled for reading off a prepared statement in which he called the judge both unprofessional and desperate. The impromptu essay reading took place just before the judge sentenced Allen to 25 years to life for the murder of a group home worker, who he allegedly beat to death in upstate New York. His lawyers likely had an aneurysm 2 seconds later. Number 4. Marcel Anguiano. After being sentenced to 40 years in prison, 47-year-old Marcel Anguiano took a razor blade to his neck and sliced his throat right in the courtroom before the judge. Anguiano was facing the sentence after pleading guilty to aggravated assault for cutting his niece with a butcher's knife. He was taken to an area hospital after the apparent suicide attempt and treated for the wound, as it only cut muscle and didn't hit any arteries. He was fine after receiving medical attention. Number 3. Erica Mae Butts and Shanita Latrice Cunningham. Erica Mae Butts and Shanita Latrice Cunningham barely heard the end of their sentencing. Life in prison for the murder of a toddler before they simultaneously collapsed and began screaming and hyperventilating. The women, who were lovers, were convicted for the crime of beating 3-year-old Serenity Richardson to death in 2009 while in their care. So brutally that the judge reportedly commented that nothing had ever affected her as strongly as the photos from the crime scene. And to add salt to that gaping wound, Butts was Serenity's mother's best friend and the child's godmother. Butts and Cunningham's reaction to the sentencing wasn't the only significant one that took place in the courtroom that day. Upon hearing the verdict, Butts' mother began shouting and screaming to the point where she had to be escorted out of the courtroom. Number 2. Shondell Jackson. In the cases of these insane reactions to court convictions, one has to wonder if a certain degree of sympathy should be felt for those sentenced, or if their reaction to their punishment is warranted on behalf of the wronged. It can be a dicey, confusing situation depending on the circumstances, but in the case of Shondell Jackson, it's pretty cut and dry. The 19-year-old was convicted of first-degree intentional homicide and robbery of a 21-year-old University of Wisconsin Milwaukee film student, Nathan Potter, who he attacked with an accomplice outside Potter's apartment. During the trial and reading of his sentencing, he showed no signs of regret or sorrow over his crimes, even at one point smiling at the victim's family while being escorted out of the courtroom. When sentenced to a much-deserved life term in prison with no chance of parole, Jackson began cursing out the judge and growling violently to the point where he had to be subdued by several officers and pepper sprayed. Members of Jackson's family in the back of the courtroom began speaking directly to the victim's family as this was going on, yelling things like, "I hate you all," and "God's the judge" at Potter's mother and father. Number 1. Michael Marin. After being found guilty of arson and facing 7 to 21 years behind bars, Michael Marin was caught on camera in a Phoenix, Arizona courtroom, placing his hands over his mouth in what initially looked like a reaction of shock to his sentencing, before taking a drink from a water bottle sitting on the table in front of him. A few minutes later, he was dead. Post-mortem toxicology tests confirmed that Marin poisoned himself with cyanide after hearing the verdict, which he was able to sneak in with him because he wasn't in custody during his trial and therefore wasn't searched upon entering the courthouse. Marin, a former Wall Street trader, was accused of setting fire to his own home after he couldn't keep up with the payments. He reportedly bought the cyanide a year prior and told family members that he could not go back to jail and would do something drastic if found guilty. And that's all for today's video. What are your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comments section down below. I hope that you found this video interesting, and if you want to see more videos like this, please consider subscribing to my channel. See you in the following video with some more of the latest updates, and until then, stay tuned.